This is Chapter 9, Photosynthesis for General Biology 1. In this section, we want to look at the overall process of photosynthesis. So you notice right here we've got the reaction for photosynthesis, where you have carbon dioxide plus water is going to yield carbohydrate, in this case glucose sugar, plus oxygen, plus some new water that did not exist before. So this is not just leftover water from these 12, this is new water that did not exist before. Also, down here, recall that in respiration, all the oxygen that's used in respiration ends up in water. Well, guess what? In photosynthesis, all the oxygen coming from photosynthesis comes from water. So notice right here, all of this oxygen right here, 12 oxygens will end up right here, 6 molecules of oxygen gas. This is the oxygen that's given off as atmospheric oxygen. All of that comes from water, not from carbon dioxide. Now, once we've established that, everything else falls into place. So, in our sugar that's produced right here, the carbons are going to come from carbon dioxide. That's the only source. The oxygen in this sugar comes from carbon dioxide, because all of this oxygen is used as atmospheric oxygen. And so, of course, the hydrogens in the carbohydrate come from the water. So, once we establish that all the oxygen from photosynthesis comes from water, everything else in this reaction falls into place as far as how the molecules are rearranged. Right here in this version of photosynthesis, we've got carbon dioxide plus water yields glucose sugar plus oxygen. And if one material is reduced, another material is oxidized. So right here, we've got two materials, carbon dioxide and water. So the water is the one that has the hydrogen. This is the one that can lose the hydrogen. This is the one that can gain the hydrogen. So carbon dioxide gains hydrogen. It undergoes reduction. Water loses the hydrogen and thus undergoes oxidation in this process of photosynthesis. Now we've got two stages of photosynthesis. We have the light-dependent reaction, which that's the stage that absorbs the light energy. Then we have what's called the Calvin cycle, named after Melvin Calvin, who worked out the process of what was going on in this second part of photosynthesis. It's also known as carbon fixation reaction. So, here's the summary diagram. And you notice you have the yellow wavy light here and line here indicating light energy coming in, and you have the light reactions, which are the reactions that absorb the light energy, take in water, split that water, and give off oxygen. So the oxygen from the water isn't used anywhere else in this process of photosynthesis, so the oxygen is given off essentially as a waste material from this process of photosynthesis. What is captured is going to be the hydrogens, and those hydrogens will be fed over here to the Calvin cycle, and will tack the hydrogens onto the carbon dioxide in order to make carbohydrates. Now, connecting the light reaction with the Calvin cycle, we've got these two cycles. We have our hydrogen carrier right here, NADP, which remember in in respiration we had NAD. This is the same thing, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. And then this will pick up the hydrogens from the water, and it's going to carry those hydrogens over here to the Calvin cycle to drop those off so that they can be tacked on to carbon dioxide to make the carbohydrates. The other link that we have is the ADP-ATP cycle. And of course, your textbook always shows ATP in a little explosion symbol. Now then, the ATP here is made using light energy, and then the ATP is going to provide the energy to drive this Calvin cycle to ultimately make the high energy carbohydrates. They'll send ADP back for a return run to be recharged by the light to make more ATP. So, notice where we are. We're in a chloroplast, and right here we have the light-dependent reactions taking place in the thylakoid, and then the carbon fixation process taking place in the stroma. Now that term carbon fixation, what that refers to is changing this carbon dioxide from this inorganic gas to this organic molecule. In other words, carbon dioxide is no longer just out there floating around, bouncing around as a gas, but the carbon is now locked down into place in an organic molecule, in this case a solid such as sugar. So carbon fixation reaction occurring in the stroma. Okay, you will see that same diagram on the test in this form right here. So you notice you have the light coming in, we have blanks here where the light dependent reaction and the Calvin cycle, and then also for our connectors here of NADP, NADPH, ADP, and ATP. Then right here we're going to have water feeding into the process, oxygen feeding out of the light dependent reaction. Here we're going to have carbon dioxide feeding into the Calvin cycle, carbohydrates feeding out, and then labeling our stages. The side over here is going to be the light dependent reaction, which occurs in the thylakoid, and then over here we have the Calvin cycle or the carbon fixation process that is going to occur in this fluid of the stroma. So you will see this diagram again on the test, and it's going to be set up. It'll look just like this. It'll be set up as a matching. Okay, then right here, this is getting into the idea of the photosystem, and photosystem is a collection of pigments, a very orderly collection of pigments that's embedded in this thylakoid membrane. This is going to absorb the light energy and then transfer that energy to what's called a reaction center, where this electron will get to moving faster, 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 until the electron is finally boosted out of its orbit and picked up by an electron acceptor, which will then carry that electron off down a metabolic pathway, ultimately leading to the formation of ATP and formation of carbohydrates. From there, we get into the light-dependent reaction, and then the light-dependent reaction is discussed in the next video. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you.